So something I love about this metaphor of running the race that Paul uses is that it spoke directly into his context in the first century, but it also speaks so well into ours today. Because we can kind of picture an Olympic athlete like we would today, disciplined, training constantly to try to win a prize that brings with it prestige and some form of like immortality or fame, even though it's temporary. And in Paul's day, there was much the same. There was a system in the Roman Empire for Olympic Games. And Corinth would be a training ground for part of that system. And so it would be commonplace to see people who are dedicated to the calling of running a race, to competing for a prize. And I think the reason Paul uses this metaphor is all about discipline. He sees these athletes, which the church at Corinth would be so familiar with, literally giving up of themselves, daily being regimented to train their body physically, to try to strive for a prize. And then Paul would compare that to Christians and the church at Corinth specifically, who maybe had struggles with selfishness, with apathy, with laziness in regards to their faith. And Paul kind of calls them out. He says, why can't we have half the discipline of these Olympic athletes who are competing for a prize that's just temporary? Like, we compete for a prize that's actually immortal, that lasts eternally, is so much more significant. So why can't we have just a portion of that same discipline? Training our bodies, focusing on using each day for the glory of God. To Paul, winning that prize means that we fulfill the Great Commission, that we would give up of ourselves so fully to God that we're proclaiming His greatness to those all around us. One important thing to know about that metaphor is that Paul isn't saying that we compete against one another in our walk with God. Like the athletes in the stadium, they're competing against one another. But this metaphor of running the race is our competing against our sin nature, our competing against our laziness or our apathy. It's our disciplined journey of trying to do more and more for the kingdom of God. And I think that's what Paul's really getting at here, is that we need to be a disciplined people who want to pursue the things of God with our whole lives and contribute to His kingdom.